Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. So as you can tell, we're having some technical difficulties. So this is Michelle Kidwell. She's from Chesapeake College Plan, and she is the best untapped resource we have in our school. So we invited her to come in today and talk to you guys about the college application process. So she's going to be kind of winging it with her PowerPoint, but you guys all have copies of it, so you can follow along that way. And if you guys want a copy emailed to you, we'd be more than happy to take your emails before you leave, and then we can send that to you guys later on if you want a digital copy. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Thanks. I'm Michelle Kidwell, as Jessica said. I'm here on Tuesdays to meet with the students. I am in room 307 during lunch. It's actually on the very back page of this. I'm there A and B lunch, and I'm there to work with them on whatever they need in the college process, as far as researching colleges, preparing for standardized tests, kind of figuring out what kind of school they want to go to, helping with financial aid, anything at all in that whole process. And I just welcome them to come every Tuesday in room 307, and hopefully I can help them along in the process. So I had a PowerPoint here, and I actually have the whole thing for you, so that little difficulty is not that big a difficulty. The first page just kind of goes over how to find your best fit college. A lot of times students will have a college in mind that they are interested in because somebody else goes there, or they know a little bit about it, but they really should do their research to kind of find which college suits them the best. And these are some of the things that we asked them to look for. We were looking for an academic fit. So basically, if that's a school you are trying to get into, do you fit in there academically? You compare your GPA and test scores to the range that college usually admits each year, and you make sure it has the major that you're interested in, make sure it has the culture that you're interested in, as far as class size and research opportunities, things like that. The second thing that we asked them to look at is the social fit. So basically, where is the college? What's the setting like? Is it a big school, a small school? Are they interested in athletics? Is diversity important to them? Any religious affiliation? How far is it from home? So they really just want to make sure that they're going to be comfortable when they get there. The best way for them to figure that out is to go and visit the campuses. I recommend that they go and do that when the students are there, when the college is in session. I know sometimes that's not always easy to do. Sometimes you can go on, when you're on a family vacation, you can kind of swing by, oh, that's on the way, let's go in here. I recommend that you start doing that kind of on the early side, because it takes them a little bit of time usually to feel comfortable to even know what they're looking for in the school. So the more familiar they become with several different schools and different sizes, different types, the better they will get an idea of what might be a good fit for them. Let's see. The next fit that we talk about is the financial fit. As early as possible, I recommend that you have a conversation with your students about the cost of college and what your family is prepared to pay for college. Sometimes, I know when my husband and I were looking at colleges for the first time, we were shocked. You know it's expensive, but when you actually get those numbers, we were shocked at how expensive it was. So you kind of want to look at your budget and make sure, we told our kids, you can apply to whatever schools you want to. And at the beginning, even though the school has a big sticker price, you shouldn't cross it off your list, because you really don't know. A lot of the smaller private schools have large endowments, so they are able to give you a better financial aid package, which could kind of get it in line with or even below the cost of a state school. So at the beginning, even though it might seem counterintuitive, don't rule anything out based on the sticker price. And then the rule, as far as most people need some help paying for college because it's become so expensive, the rule for borrowing is to not borrow any more over the 4 years of college than you think your student's first year salary will be. So if you feel like you're going to graduate, your student's going to graduate and start out at $60,000 as, I don't know, an engineer or whatever, over those 4 years, they should try not to borrow any more than that $60,000. So that would be about $15,000 a year. Okay. I recommend that you have at least one state school on your students list, and at least one school that your family could afford without taking out loans or relying on significant financial aid. That way you have something. If nothing else works out, you'll have something for your student when the time comes. The last thing kind of falls under financial is return on investment. It doesn't really make sense to go to a really expensive school if your job prospects are not that great in that major. So kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at the prices of schools. You can do a lot of research, and I can help your student do this research on what starting salaries are from different colleges and different degrees. And kind of think about how much money you're putting out and how much return you're going to get on that investment. Anybody have any questions or anything yet? Okay.
I'll just say with my kids last year, they had a chart, so this is the school, this is how much it cost, this is how much they offered you in money, and this is like the final ticket. And anything that went over a certain amount, we just crossed it off. Like, Liam was like, why'd you just cross it off? Because we canceled.
Yeah.
And so then you had to find something still on the list that still had like a variety of majors you might want.
Right. And if your student's undecided in majors, that's a good point too. If you're undecided in majors, make sure that there's a variety that you have some kind of interest in instead of going to a school like, I'm going to major in this, and then, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, and then there's nothing else there that I'm really interested in. So there were.
Kids think they're only going to be happy here.
Yeah.
Kids can be happy in 100 places.
Yeah. It's really what you make of it. Yeah, it's what they do when they get there. That's the important thing, and what they take from there. Not so much, sometimes they get really caught up in the names or the location or the prestige of this or something like that. There is a school out there for everyone. There's like 4,000 undergraduate colleges in the United States. So if your student needs help kind of narrowing it down to the few that they want to apply to, tell them to come see me, and I can hopefully give them a couple of resources, and there's some actually in this packet that they can start researching that and kind of figuring out what might be a good idea. At the beginning, they should have, they say, about 15 to 20 schools that they're looking at, like their first list that you whittle down, into which one that you're finally which ones you'll finally apply to. Okay. There were a couple of slides on my PowerPoint that are not in here, and I will make those available. If your students come to see me, I can make them available. One of them is like the top 12 things that colleges look for. Another thing about managing your social media, because colleges do look at social media. Another one was, not coming to me, but I'll try and remember them before the end of the session. And but certainly, if your students come on next Tuesday, we're off, so it'll be the following Tuesday. I'll try and have those handouts available to them. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is just different components of the application. Okay, most colleges have this similar. Most four-year colleges have a similar application packet. If your student intends to start at a two-year college, the process is much more simplified. It's basically just an application online, and then going to an orientation and registering for classes, maybe taking a placement test if you haven't done the SAT. But for four-year colleges, usually you'll go to the school's website, find their application. Most of them are electronic. Some do have paper applications. There are also common applications, the Common App, the Coalition application, and those are just applications with multiple schools, hundreds of schools actually on them, that you can kind of do one application and then tailor it to each school and submit it electronically. The schools require a high school transcript, and that's going to show their whole history of high school. So it's not just, a lot of times when you're talking about GPA, students go, oh, my GPA is really good, like currently. It's the 4 years or the 3.5 years of GPA, the cumulative GPA that they're going to be looking at. Standardized test scores and an application fee. If paying for those are a problem, you are able to apply for fee waivers for those. Most colleges require a letter of recommendation, at least one. Some require two. I would say the majority require two, and some require a few more, a third or whatever, depending on what the school is. And you can get all that information off the school's website. Again, most colleges require an essay. I do have a ton of resources for essay writing. I feel like students sometimes don't give their essays as much attention as they need. There's a couple ways for students to personalize their application, and that's with those letters of recommendations and the essays. All the other things in there, everybody can submit their scores and their GPA and all that, but for your student's personality to come through, it's really going to be through those letters of recommendation and those essays. So letters of recommendation, they do not, a lot of times they want to ask this teacher who, they have really good grades in there, they have an A, and that's great. But a lot of times, if your student asks a teacher who's seen them kind of struggle a little bit and overcome a struggle, they can really write a good letter about how they were able to persevere and do well in that subject. Essays, again, your student wants to kind of find a time in their life where they had some personal growth. And this is kind of hard sometimes for students. They may not realize it. So as parents, if you talk to your students about things like that, sometimes you can help them realize, like, well, what about the time that happened? And then, you changed as a person over that time. Or if they changed their way of thinking, something happened to them and they changed their way of thinking. So I have some brainstorming exercises that I can do with them for essays and things like that. So definitely when it comes time for essays, they should come to me and get some resources, because I think this is going to help them in figuring out a topic.
Big event.
No, it
One of
doesn't.
my kids wrote about how he got lost in the woods running when he was in 5th grade.
Right.
I mean, that's not, I didn't even know he got lost. To be honest with you, that's how I found out, but I mean,
Yeah.
and it showed about, like, what do you do when you have pressure and you respond to challenges, but it was something as simple as, like, getting lost in the woods.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be like, oh, I won this, or.
Nope,
some
not at
major
all.
event.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. The other thing on here is the student resume and activities record. A lot of times, not every college will ask for this. If you're on the Common App and the Coalition app, I think they give you like 10 slots to write down activities or extracurricular things that you've been involved in. Those could be, work experience, volunteer experience, athletics, music, whatever. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. What do you think? Oh, so sometimes, they'll have a space for a leadership role or whatever. Sometimes students, like, oh, I wasn't, the president of that or the secretary of that or anything. But a lot of times leadership, if they think about it, they can show leadership in other unofficial ways. And that's kind of where they want to explore what their essay topic is. And they can write something about that, even though they weren't the president or vice president of that organization, they still played a really significant role in that. And those were the things you're going to kind of draw on, so your student can reveal their personality and their character in those essays. Any questions about that? I'm sorry? Every college can decide that for themselves. So, a lot of them are now doing little shorter ones, like they'll do a long one, maybe 500 words, and then some like 250 word ones, which is really just a paragraph. Those are really kind of tricky because you don't really have time to develop your topic and make your point. But I do have some really good samples, so if they want to come and look at samples, I'm happy to do that.
What you need to write about, or is it a topic of choice?
So both, yeah. Like on the Common App, they'll have several different, I think they have 7 prompts, and some of them are specifically, asking about a time when this, or, you felt like this, or whatever. But one of them is, if there's something else that you haven't revealed about yourself in your application that you think we should know. So a lot of times they can make up their own question and kind of do it that way. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so this next page is just some resources that I think are really good for staying organized and exploring colleges and careers and things like that. When your student has their list of colleges, narrowed it down from that 15 or 20 to the, I don't know,
3 to 5.
yeah, 3, 5, 8, I don't know, some of them apply to a lot. But when they have that list all narrowed down, this makemeafreshman.com
Good morning,
website,
Albert. All students should be in their first period classes. Teachers turn on live stream. Have a great day.
they can put those colleges into makemeafreshman.com, and it will kind of give them a list of tasks in deadline order that they have to do. So it's just like a really good way to keep organized. I think that's one of the really overwhelming things for students when they're doing this in the fall of senior year, is just kind of keeping it organized, because it's a long process. It's like a marathon. They want it to be a sprint, but it's a marathon, and you have to put the time into it and keep track of deadlines and realize where you stopped at one point in that application and jumped over to this one, and then you need to come back and start over here. So it's using a website like this, and I have some handouts too to try and keep them organized. That's kind of a really good thing that parents can help them with, I think, is to try and keep them organized with that. It took me to my third and last child to realize, like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And we decided to have a Sunday night. We had a meeting every Sunday to kind of look at what he had done the previous week, and then what we were planning to do next in each application for the next week. And if he didn't get those things done by, you know, I don't know, he was so busy, by Friday night or Saturday morning, it was like you needed to get those steps completed. We agreed on that on Sunday. You need to get those completed before you can go to the movies with your friends or whatever, something like that. But like I said, it took me till my third one to figure that out. The next one, Big Future, is the College Board website. You can go on there and research colleges, careers, learn about paying for college. It's a really, really good resource. And there is also a scholarship opportunity for your students. It's a couple pages back, this College Board Opportunity Scholarships. Your juniors are now eligible to enter into those. So what College Board has done is they've found that there are steps that every student should be taking. It looks like this. Every student should be taking beginning now in their junior year as far as researching colleges and getting ready for the college process. So if your student goes on and creates an account, which they probably already have if they take a PSAT or SAT or whatever, they build a college list on there every month from now until, I don't know, several months, I think maybe over the next year. If they are building their list on there or updating their list, strengthening their list, every month they'll have a drawing for a $500 scholarship. If they go on Khan Academy and practice for the SAT, I think they have to do a certain number of hours. I want to say like 10 hours. If they do that, they get entered monthly into that $1,000 scholarship award. And then if they improve their SAT scores after they practice, that's a $2,000 drawing. And you can see.
It's just a lottery, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
they've,
you're in it, you could get your name pulled.
exactly. And they've kind of reserved that half of their scholarships are going to be for students of families with, I think, under $60,000 of income. So they do have a little bit of the need-based scholarship in mind. And then the last one, back on that resources page, is the career cruising. And you can get to that through the Calvert County Public Schools website. There is a lot of really good stuff on that. I ask kids if they know about it, and I know they know about it because you guys talk to them about it, but they kind of don't explore it very much. There's an assessment they can go in there and take, and they have this on Big Future as well. It just has a bunch of statements, and they have to say, you know, if they agree, disagree, strongly agree, neutral, or whatever. And then it kind of narrows out, and it gives them a whole list of career opportunities that might fit them. And then after they click on one of those, it gives them on the left side, it gives them a list of like what you do every day, what degree you need for that career, what the average starting salary is for that career, and things like that. So it's really, really useful. Any questions or anything? Okay. Next page 2 is just kind of more college research. These are just websites. Some of them I've already talked to you about, but it just gives you a whole bunch of information about colleges, about being on a college campus, about how it's different from high school, things like that. They're a good place to begin college research. I would always, always, always recommend, especially I found on Big Future, that some of their deadlines that they have for the colleges are incorrect. So your student, although these are really good resources to go ahead and research colleges, when it comes to deadlines, I recommend that they always, always go to that school's website to verify those deadlines. Okay, so the next page is kind of like a little calendar of what your students should be doing now. They should be learning about themselves, careers, colleges. They should be doing that now. Registering for and taking the SAT or the ACT. I recommend they take it at least one time as a junior. That way they have time to practice. If they get their scores, they can look at the colleges they're interested in, see how their scores line up. They have time to practice if they need to improve their scores and retake it either later in the junior year or early in the fall, or even now there's an August SAT now. Yeah. Yeah. And then also, like, now is the time to talk about, your financial need. And then in winter, again, they kind of should be doing the same thing. Can't overemphasize the importance of their grades. Okay, junior year is like the last full year that colleges are going to see their grades. Some colleges require a mid-year report from senior year, but not all do. So it's very, very important for them to be keeping their grades up. And then when we get into senior year, also to keep their grades up. Some colleges have admitted students, and then when they got that mid-year transcript and the grades have tanked, they've rescinded their offers. So it's not like, okay, good, I'm in, I'm done. Even though that's what sometimes they want it to be. They need to make sure that they keep those grades up. And also for scholarship purposes, too. That's important. Okay, if you have a student who's interested in military academies, now's the time for them to get started on that. Each of the academies has a summer program, and the applications for that are like right now. And some of them might even be wrapping up right now. They should also be developing their college list of 15 to 20 colleges. Keep all their options open, taking that SAT, and then you can start thinking about gathering documents for financial aid. I would say this summer, your student, backtrack a little bit. FAFSA opens up in October. So October 1st of every year before your student will be in college. So October 1st of senior year for their first year of college, and then October 1st of their first year in college for the next year of college. That's when they're going to submit their FAFSA. The state of Maryland has some financial aid available. Most of it is need-based aid. If your family has a lot of need, you want to try and get that FAFSA application in as soon as possible, because it's first come, first served. Okay. You're going to have to make a login, basically, to complete and sign the FAFSA. Your student needs one, and one parent needs one as well. And that's called the FSA ID. Okay. On Tuesdays, I have handouts for this that I can give to juniors. It's a little early now. This is something that you probably want to do over the summer. And then FAFSA always looks at 2 years behind. They call it prior year. So this year, students are going to college in the fall of 2020, so it used 2018 financial data. Okay, so your students will be going in fall of 21, so it'll use the year of 2019. Okay. If you have a student who wants to play a sport at a Division I or Division II school, they need to register with the NCAA. The FSA ID I just talked about. There's things, that's one of my other handouts, is things that your student could do over the summer to make them, I don't know, more favorable maybe in their college applications. They can work a job, they can volunteer somewhere, they can get an internship any community service. Those things all look good on their college applications. Again, in the summer, even though the students aren't there, you can still visit the colleges. It doesn't feel quite the same as when the students are there, but you can certainly do that. That student resume is kind of a big deal if your student hasn't kept track of their high school activities. I have an organizer that they can come and get, and they can use that to kind of backtrack since freshman year, the things they've been involved with, so they have that resume ready to go. There is a local scholarship application that requires that resume, and I highly recommend that each of your students apply for that local scholarship. It's about 45, 50 scholarships on one application, and for scholarships, the smaller the better. There's less competition in this one because it's a local scholarship. Over the past several years, there's been about 100 applicants between for the whole county for that local scholarship application, so that kind of brings their odds up a little bit. Mm-hmm.
I read about that one, but you couldn't even start yet because you had to be a senior.
Yeah, it is mostly for seniors. There is one on there that's like for middle school or 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I think, but it is mostly for seniors. But I also have, I just updated a handout yesterday. I have a list of scholarship websites. I mean, your students could be applying for scholarships all the time. There's that many out there. It's just a matter of looking at the scholarships, what the requirements are, and then kind of filtering out which ones they will apply to.
Do you have a list available for when we start to look into the
Scholarships? Yeah, actually, make sure your student comes to see me on Tuesdays. I don't think it's the next week. It's a couple weeks out, but I have those. It's a whole list of websites for scholarships, but certainly you can, that local scholarship. The best place for scholarships is at the colleges themselves. So the college your students planning to apply to, those are like the best, most generous scholarships. Then that local scholarship application, I would say. There's also legislative scholarships from Maryland senators and delegates. I'm trying to think what other
That's why it's important to do that FAFSA early, because then if you apply in October and they already have your FAFSA, they can already tell you what kind of scholarship. So even if you make $2 million, you still want to fill out the FAFSA because they need that to process their scholarships. Even if the scholarship has nothing to do with need, they need the doc. So the quicker you do that way, in December you get the acceptance and they say, okay, we'll give you $5,000 a year.
And too, like you said, with how it's like first come, first serve, you can't really say who's applying each year. Everybody's got different, financial situations. So if you're kind of on that edge and they come to the first round of things and you're on that edge piece, you might get offered something that later on will not be available because more people have applied. So I would really try to do that part early so that your information is there.
Yeah, and I also recommend that your students apply to at least one Maryland college. If they put one Maryland college, it could even be, like as a backup, I always kind of encourage students to put CSM on there, just because, if something happens, whatever, that you have that option available to you. But if they put at least one Maryland college on their FAFSA, then the state financial aid office will receive their FAFSA and evaluate them for state financial aid. If they apply to all out-of-state colleges, the state financial aid is not even going to look at their FAFSA application. Okay. Any questions or anything I can help you with? Okay, I do have, I will bring those other handouts when I come on Tuesdays.
We could send the PowerPoint if somebody wants them, we can have
Okay.
their email, and we
Yeah.
can forward it.
If you guys want the PowerPoint, if you can just write down your email on this list here, on the sign-in sheet, I'll do a new sheet. You can just jot down your email and we'll send that out to you guys. Also to our next session, it's gonna be March 12th, I believe, it's the second Thursday in March. And Christian Zimmerman, he's from the CSM Financial Aid Office, he'll be there to present about scholarships and financial aid. And he is really good, he's one of the best that I've ever worked with and gotten a chance to meet. So he will be awesome. And he will answer a lot of your questions about scholarships. Yeah, not just about CSM, it's about the whole financial process for everyone. But he's a very good resource, so we're fortunate we snagged him to come in.
Make sure you grab some coffee and donuts on your way out too, and if you have any other questions, let us know.
Thank you guys for coming.
You said that the applications for like essays, et cetera, there's the one website, and basically you can write an essay, and that will apply to multiple, you can tailor it
So-
to multiple places?
Yeah, the common application and the coalition application, and there's a couple of other smaller common applications. But the colleges choose if they want to be a part of that. So your student couldn't just say, oh, I want to go here, I'm going to do the common app. They have to make sure that college is on the common app for them to do that, okay? Yeah, and they can go ahead and create that common app account anytime now. It won't be open for them. The Common App, I think, is August 1st that it opens, but they can kind of go in there and get an account set up. It does take some effort, some of these accounts setting up. They ask you a bunch of questions, and it takes some time. Like if they haven't set up that College Board account, that takes a good, I don't know, 40 minutes or so to set that up. So, yeah, so anything they can do now to kind of get a jump on what's going to happen in the fall is going to suit them well, because it gets really, really busy. I think they're surprised at how busy it gets in the fall. So it's a good idea to do some of the groundwork now to get it going. Okay.